thing we're going to do is chop an onion. So we need to remove this dried out outside, and then we're going to hold the onion down safely and just put a little cut in, and then we can get to the layers. And we're just taking off everything that is brown. And we'll take the other end of the onion off, which all the chefs tell me off for. Get it on a nice flat surface. And then we cut the onion in half, so we've got a nice non-slippy surface that's flat. Hold our hands like this so we can secure the onion, but the knife can't cut into our skin. It'll just rest against our knuckles. And we're just going to slice down this way, cut the onion into nice little vaguely even pieces. It doesn't matter too much if the onion is completely even, because it's going to go into the slow cooker for quite a long time and all the bits are just going to break down and all the lovely flavours are going to get pulled out of the onion. How to chop a cauliflower. First thing we want to do is get all these green stalks off. And then when you get down to the stage where you can really see the stalk of the cauliflower, you just get a nice sharp knife in there, make sure you know where all your fingers are before you plunge it down, and we're just going to take the bottom off like that. And then we're going to turn the collie over and we're just going to lob the whole thing in half. And then you can see where all the little florets join. And all we're going to do now is just pull. Ooh, there you go, you can see it'll start to just come apart really obviously, and you can almost see the pieces that it wants to break into. I wouldn't break them into anything too small. You could just keep breaking down and it'll come into little pieces like that. Those will be fine, everything can go in. It's just that once it's been in the slow cooker for a while, these tiny little pieces might just dissolve slightly. So if we keep them a little bit bigger and try and keep the pieces vaguely the same size, then they'll cook evenly and you'll end up with all the bits of veg being the same softness. And then if you end up with any sort of white leafy bits like this, they can go in or you can remove them, entirely up to you. And we'll just do the same with this side. And there we go, barely even needed a knife, and that is a whole head of cauliflower just chopped into nice even florets that will cook evenly. We will pop 2 stalks of celery into this recipe. So we start by just breaking them off the celery bulb, and then we'll give these a rinse under the tap just to get rid of any dirt that's inside the celery. Okay, celery washed, and then all we're going to do is just take the very ends off just to get rid of any bits that are dry. And we're going to do the same at the bottom, again, just to get rid of any bits that are dry or a little bit dirty. There we go. And then with each celery stalk, we'll just cut it in half, and then the thicker end we'll just cut in half lengthways so that all of these 3 pieces are just a bit closer to being the same width. And then we'll just line them up using the edge of your knife, and keep fingers and thumbs out of the way, hold the stalks down nice and securely, and then we're just going to go little rocking motion and just cut them into nice thin pieces. And then when you get close to your fingers, just move them back. And again, and as you get to the end of the celery stalk and you get closer and closer to your fingers, you can just slow right down, be really, really careful, and then for these last little bits, you can just put them in place and then just cut them in half or into pieces as needed. And we'll just do the same with the other one. And that's our chopped celery. Since we're making a sort of kind of spaghetti bolognese, it feels like we should put some mushrooms in it. Not essential, but they'll add to the flavour and they'll fit very well with the other ingredients that we're using. So we've just got a nice little collection of mushrooms here. Mushrooms do tend to have little bits of dirt on them when you first get them. Perfectly natural, it's just what they've been grown in, and you can just have a little sort through and pick off any little bits, or if you want to, you can give them a little rinse under the tap, although it can make them a teeny bit slimy sometimes, not in any way harmful, just sometimes not the nicest of textures. Chopping the mushrooms, all we're going to do is cut them in half. These ones are quite big. If you've got much smaller mushrooms, that's fine, and you'll just need to chop them into much fewer pieces. Get them on a nice flat edge so that they're not going to wriggle about anywhere, and then all we're going to do with this one, very similar to how we chop an onion, is just cut this into slices, and then we'll just pile those slices back together so that we can shift it around 90 degrees and just cut those pieces into smaller pieces. And all we're trying to end up with is some small chunks that are about 1.5 centimetres. So we are aiming for, in total, about 1 kilo, which is 2.2 pounds of vegetables. What I tend to do is pick 3 or 4 different vegetables that we can use together that will complement, or we just go with whatever's seasonal and whatever's cheapest. But if there are vegetables that you particularly like, you can make a fake vegan spag bol that is 80% mushrooms with just a little bit of onion and a little bit of celery in it, and that's perfectly fine. Go with what you like. All the ingredients are chopped. Now we just need to pop our spag bol together. So we've got all our veggies going in. We've got 1 medium-sized onion, 2 stalks of celery, 1 whole head of cauliflower, although it was quite a small collie, and about 200 grams of chopped mushrooms. And it doesn't matter what kind of mushroom. Next, we'll pop in our herbs and spices. So we've got 1 teaspoon of oregano going in, 1 teaspoon of dried basil, which adds a bit of flavour, but if you're on a tight budget, can absolutely be skipped. 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and 2 stock cubes. And for this, you can use either vegetable or beef stock cubes, and most beef stock cubes these days are vegan. You can check the back, but the beef flavour is normally made with yeast extract rather than any actual animal fats. Next, we're going to add 1 dessert spoon of dark soy sauce. If you haven't got this, or if it's too expensive to buy, you can absolutely leave it out. It's not utterly necessary, it just adds a nice savoury flavour. And then we'll just add the rest of our bulk and some water. So we're going to add 200 grams of red lentils, which is about a coffee mug full. And those can just go in. The lentils will add protein, they'll add fibre, and they'll also add a good amount of bulk and thicken the sauce in the same way that meat mince would. We're going to add 2 tins of chopped tomatoes, or you can just buy the unchopped tomatoes and pop a knife in the can and just give them a bit of a mash up, or you can put them in a bowl and mash them with a potato masher. And that's 1. And there's can number 2 there. Next, we're going to add some water, just so there's a good amount of liquid for the lentils to soak up and to make a nice coherent sauce. The easiest way to measure out your liquid is to just use the empty tin that you used for your tin tomatoes and just fill it up with water from the tap, and then that just gets poured straight in, and it also cleans the can that you've used and means that you don't waste any of that lovely tomato juice. And for this recipe, we're going to use 2 full tins of cold water from the tap. And next, we're just going to give everything a good mix, just so the stock cubes are mixed in, all the spices are dispersed through the recipe, and all of the lentils are mixed through. So that's all of our recipes in, everything's mixed, and now we just go lid on and we turn our slow cooker on, and this recipe can happily sit for 5 to 7 hours. We've put our slow cooker on the high setting. If you're not sure what setting to put it on, just have a look at the instruction manual for your slow cooker, but anywhere between medium and high will be absolutely fine.
And this is how our very tasty vegan spag bol has turned out. So you can see here the lentils have really thickened the sauce. It's lovely and tomatoey. It's all bulked up really nicely. This can just be served on its own. It's full of lentils, it's full of fibre, it's full of vitamins, and if you just serve this in a bowl, it should serve about 6 adult portions, about 30 to 40 minutes before you are ready to serve. Stir some pasta through the dish, pop the lid back on, and the liquid from the spag bol sauce will cook the pasta through. You might just need to add a tiny bit more liquid, but you can keep an eye on that as it's cooking. With some sort of carb on the side, whether you wanted to serve this with pasta, you could serve it with potatoes, you could serve it with bread on the side. That should extend the portions and give you about 10 adult servings. We really hope you'll join us soon for another recipe, and follow Open Kitchen on all the socials.